Today, I'd like to talk to you a bit about the work that we've done on the Gradle Daemon for 3.0. I want to tell you a bit about how to maximize the performance of the daemon on your builds. And I want to give you a little hints as to the future. All right, my name is Eric Wendelin. I'm a Gradle engineer. I work on the Daemon team. You can follow me on Twitter at Erwin. I used to develop the Gradle JavaScript and CSS plugins, Cobertura, a few more. Long-time lover of Gradle. So you guys are most likely familiar with the Gradle daemon, but just in case you're not, the daemon in a nutshell is a long-lived background process, Java process. It is a client server talking locally over TCP. And it listens for and executes build actions. And that's really about it. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a little demonstration. All right. Yeah. Yeah. You decide. You decide. OK. So let me mirror my screen. Sorry about that. You know what? I'm just going to move it since clearly it's escaping me how to make that happen. Everyone can see that. Should I increase font size? So what I have here is a split screen, 2 projects, both the same. It's running Mockito. You guys are familiar with that library. And so the one on the left is not using the daemon, and the one on the right is. And I think you guys saw this in the keynote. So if I do Gradle W, just do tasks. There are no daemons running right now, so you'll pay a little bit of a startup cost. The first time that you run it, it'll invoke the background, and then it'll connect to it. And so we pay a couple seconds there. But then every other build, we'll do compile Java. And you can see it connects, and then it immediately starts going. And it's nice. We know that we can cache a whole lot more, so we can cache configuration and things like that, and makes it faster. And the beauty of this is that it gets faster as you use it. So if I do the same thing again, now the one on the right was actually 10 seconds last time. Now it's 6. But we're always waiting on the no daemon build, huh? And after about 5 runs, the JVM will be warm, and the caches will be warm. So you'll get maximum performance. So it gets faster as you use it, and that's why I'll give you some strategies for making sure that you reuse daemons effectively. All right. So in our performance tests on various projects, we typically see the second build is around 15 to 75% faster. It's faster the more you use it because the JVM has progressive runtime optimizations. We have a cache hit rate for classes, the class cache, as well as more effective task I/O caching. Users seem fairly happy. Some have been able to achieve sub-second builds or achieved over 90% improvement. It's the #1 thing that we recommend for those suffering from slow builds. we see that the fifth build is about when it gets warm. It's 30 to 90% faster compared to not using the daemon. You could even say it's smoking fast. Okay. So now you're familiar with the daemon, and I want to explain a little bit what we're going to do in Gradle 3.0 and what you can try out today. So first off, as you are probably aware, it's now enabled by default. That means that you no longer have to use --daemon or the Gradle Daemon true property. It'll just do it by default. Now, like I said, it's the first thing that we suggest to users with slow builds, and we decided that really, going forward, the best way to make everyone's builds fast is to make it easy for them, trivial for them to just use it. So perhaps in the future, enabling parallel by default or configure on demand. It's resource aware. It's aware of system memory. So if system memory is low, daemons will typically idle out faster. If a daemon JVM memory is slow, then we may do some more aggressive cache eviction. We also take into account garbage collection activity on the daemon JVM. So if we see garbage collections happening frequently, collecting very little memory, we know that that daemon's in trouble. And finally, the daemon is aware of other daemons. So it might be able to take action if it says, hey, I'm the least recently used out of 3. I haven't been used in 20 minutes. Shorten the idle timeout to let myself idle out faster if the user doesn't use me, because it's less likely that I'm going to be used. But what we've really been building for 3.0 is a framework for making the daemon more intelligent. So in further releases, we'll be tweaking these things and then giving you guys more power to maximize performance of the daemon, preferring a single daemon per machine, and always using that if we can. Part of the goal of enabling it by default requires that it never crashes. The parity between no daemon and using the daemon is nothing. And so we've been hard at work squashing as many bugs as we can, especially on Windows, especially with files leaking and class loaders locking and things like that. And so this is a partial list of the things that we've done in preparation for 3.0. You can see that there's 3 in progress, and this is actually not the full list. 2 kind attendees have made me aware of 2 others that will make sure to be fixed in 3.0. One of them specifically is better memory handling for Android apps. We want users to be proud of the daemon, just a little bit more aware, just a little bit more helpful of the daemon. And so we just added a few little things so that you guys you see it a little bit and you have the ability to see more. I'm going to go ahead and live demo a little bit about what we've seen, and you've seen part of it in the keynote, of course. Okay, back to our keynote project. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Okay. Yes. So on the left side, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the daemon running 1. Okay. And I'll say, okay, Gradle stop. And we stop the daemon. We now kind of tell you that if a daemon stopped recently, why? And we give you a little bit more information as to why. So I can say, just any task Gradle W help say, and we'll put on the info flag. And now in all of this information that you'll get is some notes about, first you'll see in the life cycle that one daemon was stopped. Oh, it reused a daemon. That's, oh no, there we go. Scroll too far. All right, so in case you can't see it right here, previous daemon stopped because the stop command was received. There will be interesting messages about the decisions we make if you're debugging the daemon. You know, why is my daemon dying? You can look at this and say, it idled out because my system memory was low, and you know, it was idle for 20 minutes or something like that. Okay. Now we have a daemon running, so I can run Gradle status. And here we can see that process ID 53000 is running the latest 3.0 milestone 2, and it's idle. And you know, let's go ahead and run one more daemon here. So we'll do help, but we'll change the Java parameters. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Another thing we're considering doing is changing the control C behavior so it stops killing the daemon as well. All right, one more time. You have an idle daemon. Okay, so we say, you know, incompatible daemon cannot be reused. And then if I go over here, I can see we have 2. And of course, it'll report if it's busy as well. Or that was fast. Fine. 2 smoking fast. Okay, there we go. There you go. It works. All right. And if you went to Luke and Etienne's talk, you know that the daemon is also integrated with Gradle build scans. So if you happen to run with memory too low or something happens to the machine, you'll get a notification in the performance card that the daemon was shut down. And you'll also get some interesting information about the previous builds run by this daemon and the other daemons running at the time of this build. Now, I hope I've convinced you that it's worth enabling the daemon, even right now, on your projects, and especially with 3.0. So you may be curious a few things, like when should I use the daemon or when should I not use the daemon? And with 3.0, we really think that there shouldn't be any reason not to run it with all projects everywhere. The one caveat is, of course, CI. And especially when you use containerized CI, because you're not going to reuse a process, and so there's no point in paying the half-second startup cost. But if you can achieve the faster feedback on CI, as an engineer, why would you not want that? And our goal is to ensure that because it works just the same as not having the daemon on, you have no worries, and your builds are just faster, even on CI. I bring this up because this is a very common question on Stack Overflow. But you use Gradle in Eclipse or IntelliJ? How do you use the Gradle daemon? And it turns out that all IDEs actually always use the daemon through the Gradle tooling API. So there's no action there. Finally, we want to reuse daemons across projects. And we can do so if we have the same Gradle version, use the same Java home, and we have compatible JVM args. And compatible means the same memory, the same character set, language, SSL trustor, and a few other things you can look up in the docs. So it might be worth just looking if two projects are similar enough that you can just reuse the daemon between them. There's a lot of classes that are cached even in Gradle that would be common even if the projects are very dissimilar. So give it a shot. There we go. Or you may be wondering, how do I score one of those sweet, rare transfer stickers? Oh, you can't even see it. Oh, you can maybe. And the answer is bribery. My favorite types of bribery are IPAs, sometimes Hefeweizens. So maybe grab a beer, ask me a question about the daemon, bribe me, and I can give you some of the few that I have. Okay. So perhaps you're using the daemon every day, and you're reusing it as much as you can. Now I want to give you a few tips for effective reuse. You now have the Gradle status command. You can list the daemons. The Gradle info shows the stopped reasons, and you can look in the daemon logs for that information about why it's stopping. One thing that I do is I actually set the daemon idle timeout to 9 hours, about the length of my workday. And that's just so that if I go do some design work or something like that, I can come back and my daemon's still alive. The default's 3 hours. It's really, yeah, I see no performance problems. All right, so imagine that you might be having trouble and you're wondering what's going on with either the daemon or your build. We now log some performance information in the daemon log and in the lifecycle log with this property. And I'll share these slides so you guys don't have to memorize this long property name. And then you can use Gradle status, and you can use go to the home, your Gradle home daemon version, and the process ID, and that's where the daemon logs will be. And those are always generally logged at the debug level, so you'll get lots of information there if you want it. Even going further down the rabbit hole, you can kind of tune the performance of the daemon. Here's a few of the things that we use to make decisions about when to evict things from caches, when to shut down the daemon, and things of that nature. And I won't just, you can read. There are a few of these, and you can look them up in the documentation. But know that you can tweak, for example, the garbage collector rate. If for some reason you have an app that garbage collects very often, for some reason, just like small garbage collections, and that's by design, then you may want to change a little bit, because usually if we see high rates of garbage collection, that looks like a problem to the Gradle daemon. And so that's just know that we intend these things to be tweakable if you decide to go that far. Okay, consider this. Your build is slow. The tests are slower than last week. What if you had access to the performance of all your past builds, and you could say, on Friday, someone added Scala test or something like that, and that's super slow. And so with build scans, you have information about the different types of tests. each individual test that's running. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the build scan. Actually, we'll not. The Wi-Fi just decided to sign me out. So I'll just sign in really quick. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, we can take a look at the Gradle.js plugin, for example. I'll just do a quick task, maybe compile Groovy. Click on the link. And here we can see performance. And I actually didn't execute any tests. Actually, kill that. Make sure I generate a build scan. And this will take a little while, so I'm going to come back to it, I think. Okay. One thing that I don't think we promoted enough is our Gradle performance guide in beta. We released this with Gradle milestone 3.0 milestone 2. It's a 13-page doc, consumable in an afternoon. And I guarantee that you'll learn something new even if you're a long-time Gradle user. So I encourage you to go to gradle.github.io/performance guide, take a look. And it's a wiki format, so I think you can actually update it if you see somewhere that a missing section or something that needs a little bit more clarification. Perhaps your problem is none of these. Well, newsflash, you're at the Gradle Summit. Talk to us. Tweet at Gradle. We have a community team ready to help you. If your problem needs a little bit more clarity or an example, then hit up discuss.gradle.org and give us a shout out. So in summary, for maximizing performance, reuse the daemon as much as possible or increase that idle timeout. Use build scans to figure out why your daemon may be terminated, or just look at the number of times that the daemon has run a build. So you have that number there. If it's over 5, then that's a positive sign, because that means at least you're getting to a warm daemon. You're going to start having the maximum speed. Daemon? I learned something today then. Check out the Gradle performance guide. There's tips. The number 1 tip there is enable the daemon. And if none of those, then go to discuss.gradle.org. Okay. So, you guys have an idea of what we're shipping for Gradle 3.0. Now I want to give you a little bit of a taste of the future. One of the things that we want to accomplish pretty soon is a cross-version daemon registry. What that means is that daemons should be aware of other daemons running in different versions. Right now, the protocol is such that they really need to They talk only to daemons of the same version. More intelligent caching and cache eviction. So selectively caching things, especially on Android, to avoid, caching 6 gigabytes of a 7 gigabyte heap. And again, better cache eviction to make sure that we can keep daemons alive as long as possible. Maybe further future, perhaps we can have a daemon that starts to get a little proactive. It maybe warms itself up while it's idle. It automatically adjusts for user behavior through machine learning. So, for example, Gradle is moving toward multiple technologies, building Python and other languages. And users of those technologies tend to behave differently, and we can adjust the behavior of Gradle differently. And then we can start to get into speculative dependency resolution and task execution. You must realize that the daemon is the vehicle through which Gradle can be proactive about things. Okay. So that's a taste of the future. I have 2 more things to request from you. The first is to try it out. Just update your Gradle wrapper 3.0 milestone 2, and give us feedback. We want everyone to be successful with the daemon, and so giving it a try and reporting bugs is the best way to ensure that you get the benefit of this. But maybe you have some ideas, and if you do, then maybe it'd be worthwhile considering working for Gradle. There's a lot of work to do, and so hit up gradle.org/jobs and give us a shout out. That's all I have. Thank you from myself and the Daemon team, Gary and Michael. Would you guys like to come up so if our users have any questions? All right. So anyone have any questions? Yeah.
With the IntelliJ IDEA plugin in Gradle, is there, and with it always running with the 3.0, is there anything, any caveats that you need to know or anything like that for, killing it or stopping it? I mean, typically our developers just compile and build from the side of IntelliJ, and they don't use the command line a lot. Tips, tricks.
Okay, sure. So the question was, let me make sure I understand this. You have a lot of engineers that are using Gradle through IntelliJ primarily, and you want to make sure that that IntelliJ is reusing the daemon properly.
Yeah, I mean, there's not anything built into IntelliJ right now to say stop the daemon or even to get the status yet. But I think that's something we probably want to start thinking about in the future and working with the IntelliJ guys to see how we can expose that sort of thing. So most of that sort of stuff would have to be done at the command line.
It's worth mentioning too that the automatic idle timeout still applies. So if someone is working in IntelliJ and they go out to lunch or whatever, they come back and they haven't used it since then, you'll still have an idle timeout that applies to your build.
It's a good idea, but I haven't tried this, but perhaps, I'm not sure if you're on a Mac, but you can tweak the arguments, the JVM arguments for IntelliJ. You might be able to actually say, hey, set the idle timeout property or any of these other tunable parameters and see if that works. I hadn't thought of that, but that's actually could be interesting, perhaps. Any other questions? Yes?
What things would you expect to see in the Gradle Daemon over a long period of time using it? Are there any areas that you would say you might exercise it, make it work hard or have issues? I don't know if you a lot of configuration or a lot of tasks or anything like that that
So initially, my thought goes to the heavy caching that the daemon does. If you're using the daemon with varied projects, I can imagine that it trying to cache quite a lot, and over the course of time, if our cache eviction is not effective enough, then the daemon JVM will end up running out of memory.
Although should that happen, our resource awareness should kick in to a certain extent and perhaps kill the daemon sooner.
Right. Yeah.
Are you asking what what sort of things to look out for as the
Yeah.
daemon is running longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, one of the things you can do is we saw that property that Eric flashed up here for the performance logging. That's going to print out information about, say, memory usage and things like that. And you can kind of pay attention to that. If you have suspicion that maybe something is leaking memory, and that's one of the reasons why we have this in there. If you think about it, you've got Gradle that's running the daemon, or running builds on a regular basis, but you're also pulling in potentially plugins and things that are somewhat opaque to you that might be leaking memory or grabbing resources and things like that. And that can be building up over time potentially. And so you can pay attention to that performance logging in that daemon log, and you can kind of see that pattern starting to arise. Eventually, Gradle's going to recognize the fact that something bad is happening in the heap, and you'll actually restart the daemon at that point. But that's one thing that you could potentially look at, is that performance logging, which you'll get in the daemon log.
And of course, if you do notice those patterns on a persistent basis, that's something that we'll want to know as well, so we can tune that.
Right.
So please do share your feedback with us.
Yeah, especially if you feel like maybe it's expiring them too fast or something like that. That's the sort of feedback that we'd like to get out of it, because we've put some of these thresholds in place and such, and we've done that by doing some tweaking and playing around with it. But that's all kind of reliant on our tests being correct and the such. And and I'm not sure that we have there's the possibility that maybe we haven't quite gotten those scenarios right.
Yeah.
So that sort of feedback would be great as well.
We might not have a perfect representation of the real world workflows, so
Right.
that's why it's important to get the feedback. Great. Question back there?
What happens if I have multiple projects that would otherwise share a daemon and I'm trying to build them concurrently? Will one wait on the other, or will another daemon?
It'll start up a new daemon. Yeah, if they're busy, we don't have the capability yet to execute multiple builds in the same daemon.
That message that you see when you start up the build, where it's telling you a little bit about the status of what's going on, you would see a message there that's saying that it couldn't use another daemon because it was already busy.
Right. And actually, we intend to expand Gradle status to tell you what is busy with, among other things. Other things like the environment, so that hey, this one's running with 4 gigs of memory, this one's running with 1, and so forth. Any other questions? Yeah.
Use the G1 garbage collector by default?
It doesn't use it by default, but we do have, in the garbage collection monitoring that we do have separate settings for the different types of garbage collectors, that could be in use by the JVM. So if you chose to use the G1 garbage collector, you have to still set that in, say, org.gradle.jvm args or something along those lines, but you would then get appropriate thresholds set for that particular garbage collector.
Any other questions? All right, we'll be available throughout the night if you guys have more intricate questions. And yeah, thank you very much.